All right, Sebastian, we are live on the Digital Influence Show. And hey, everybody, if you're out there live, recorded, whatever it may be, on the podcast, in the video, whatever, welcome. I'm really excited about today. And some of you may have heard Sebastian on the show before, but today's going to be a very, very different conversation. And one of the questions that I hear a lot is RevOps just another term for sales and marketing, or is it really something different? In other words, is it, just putting lipstick on the sales and marketing pig? But most people I talk to, they're either totally bought in on RevOps or they're very skeptical that it's just a new term. So Sebastian van Heyningen, I got it right.
Yeah, you got it.
He is an SDR who turned in, a successful, thriving SDR who's now turned into a consultant and a business owner. He's a president of Central Metrics, and he's a revenue operations consultant. So, Sebastian, welcome back to the Digital Influence Show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be back.
Hey, I want to start with this, as I know buyer's journey interests you. But I want to get there, but I want to come out of it a little different path. So anybody that's listening, that's either in the camp of RevOps, it's all about RevOps now, or they're in the camp of, it's just a new word, right? Could you address that? Like what truly is RevOps?
Yeah, that is a loaded question. I'll do my best to answer it. And, I think the key to the answer is that it will be different based on who you ask it to. And so, you asked earlier, is RevOps something new, or is it, renaming something that's already happening? And the answer to that question is yes.
It's both
of those things. And, the simple way to put it is that to get somebody to buy your product or service, they have to pass through so many sets of content, landing pages, technologies, processes, connecting with people. That infrastructure is your revenue operations. And it's cross-functional. B2B sales teams can have a webinar that leads to a free trial, that leads to an opportunity, that leads to becoming a product. Somebody who is in e-commerce can have an Instagram ad that leads to a landing page, that leads to a credit card form. All of that is revenue operations. And I think what we're seeing now is that people are starting to take that function more seriously. And they're realizing that you don't win on the quality of your product. You win on the quality of the design of your marketing and sales funnel. Are you delivering a positive experience at every level? Are you informing them at every step of the process? And are you helping make those decisions happen more quickly? Because at the end of the day, somebody's going to say yes, or they're going to say no. And you need to get them to that answer as quickly as possible, while also dumping value on them, because you are the expert in whatever industry you're selling into. So long answer for that.
No, it's a great answer, and I'm gonna respond with a really bad response. So how is that different than traditional sales and marketing?
It is not entirely different. That I think that's the cold hard truth. I'll put it to you this way: things can happen for you, or you can take control of those things and own the outcomes. And so I think before, we put in our Salesforce, we put in our sales love, we tell our salespeople good luck, we pump out content and hope for the best. But now we're looking at more of an intelligent design for that funnel and a continuous improvement mindset behind that funnel. And I think, revenue operations is the way to link multiple functions together around one journey. You hear it all the time. Sales hates marketing. Marketing hates sales. Salespeople are generating deals that the client success team is having trouble fulfilling because maybe something was oversold. All of those gaps in the process revenue operations is in charge of making sure that they go away. The shortest term that I've kind of loved to use lately is revenue operations is your internal third party. So they are balancing the needs and wants of marketing, sales, success, product, finance to come together in one coherent customer journey, because the customer doesn't want to see product bumping heads with marketing. They just want to see the content that informs them on the product so that they can make their decision.
Excellent. Okay. So one of the things that I've hoped for is, will this new term of Rev Ops put one person in leadership responsible for both the marketing activities and the sales activities? Do you think that that's, and I've hoped that because I think that's a better way of getting sales and marketing aligned in a more cohesive effort than marketing reports to a CMO and sales reports to somebody else, whether it's a CRO or other term. Is that part of the strategy of just getting them working together and reporting to a same leader?
In some cases, yes. I mean, the function itself is fairly new. I've seen revenue operations leaders report directly to the CEO. I've also seen revenue operations leaders under either marketing or sales. And I think it really depends on what you're selling and the way that you're selling it, where RevOps lives. I would stop short of saying marketing should report to RevOps and sales should report to RevOps. It's more that revenue operations is facilitating the connection between marketing and sales. So it's not over them, but it is, side by side, and making sure that to the executive leadership, suite and the board, that these things are happening coherently and not in two separate vacuums.
So maybe it was 6 years ago now. I spoke at an event and I talked about blowing up the silos of sales and marketing. And I didn't use the term RevOps. I didn't know the term RevOps back then. But what I shared was that to be successful in a digital era, we've got to blow up those silos and they need to work better together. If content is truly going to be king, it's got to go cross boundaries. And I got laughed at. I mean, I have never had such a negative confrontational audience in any talk that I had ever given. To a point, I had a lady like the third or fourth row that could not shake her head strong enough to disagree with me. And she was in the marketing side.
Yep.
Right. As you said, if the marketing team's still reporting to a CMO and the sales team's reporting to someone else, are we going to be able to blow up those silos and get them to really work together?
Yes, if we align their incentives. I think that's the key to it all. Marketing has a goal, sales has a goal, the company has a goal. All three of those goals need to be aligned. And that's what revenue operations helps with at the strategic level. There's a tactical element, fixing reports, integrating systems, getting data for the sales team, et cetera, et cetera. But at the strategic level, I see it as the CMO and the chief sales officer are in a room together, and the revenue operations leader is facilitating that conversation. They're sort of the judge in that back and forth, where marketing says, well, we got all these impressions, and sales says, not enough of them ended in sales. And, marketing says we were recognized as one of the best content producers in our industry. And sales says, well, we didn't hit our goal for revenue. So how do we make sure that the things that marketing is trying to do are supporting sales, and the things that sales are trying to do are supporting marketing? Because on the front line of sales, you're getting that feedback that marketing needs. So again, blowing up those silos. If we are separate, sales is getting insights for marketing and never delivering them. Marketing is generating leads for sales that they're not happy with. So revenue operations is, kumbaya, let's all hold hands together and aim at the same target. Really, that's what the strength of it is.
So it sounds to me like if the incentives aren't aligned, if they don't have mutual common goals, that there's
Yep,
still going to be fractures in that system. So the key for
exactly.
RevOps is going to be common goals. Does that lead into? I've heard people talk about common compensation models. What do you think about that for the
Yeah.
marketing side to be able to share in the commission structure?
I am pro that. I
Yeah,
think
me too.
how can we align goals if we're not going to align the results of those goals or the compensation for those goals? And, I'm a big football fan. And so the simplest way to put it is if the team wins the Super Bowl, everybody gets a pay raise. If the quarterback, puts up 5,000 plus yards in a season, which is correlated with winning more games, that quarterback's going to get an individual boost to their income.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing, but in the kind of software sales marketing
Yeah.
atmosphere.
Hey, next time you got to turn your turn signal on for me, man. You said football, and I thought we were going to talk about the beautiful game and not the American version.
Handball.
Handball, right? The American football where we very rarely touch the ball with our feet, but that's
Yeah.
another podcast that we can talk about. Yeah. So let's talk about the buyer journey. I want to shift to the buyer journey. And actually, when I talked about football, I threw myself off. One of the things it sounds like to me is that, mid-sized companies or smaller companies that tended to have a VP or an SVP of sales and marketing, where at an enterprise level, you'd never have a title that crossed over sales and marketing. You were on one side or the other. But it sounds to me like the small businesses are actually maybe in a better position to have pretty strong rev ops engines because they've always kind of reported to that one person.
Yeah, 100%. I think the further we get down the path of silos, the harder it is to break them. And I see it on my discovery calls. I sell revenue operations services. It is a lot easier for me to sell to a founder, on a team of 30 or 50 employees than it is for me to jump into an infrastructure where there's a CMO, a CSO, a marketing manager, a product marketing manager, a head of content, and tell them you all are not working together well. And
Right.
there's going to be things that you're doing today that you cannot do anymore. And there's going to be things that you're not doing today that you're now are going to have to do. So yeah, it is a lot easier at that smaller agile stage. And it gets you to a place where when you scale, the team who started with revenue operations and aligned goals is going to have a much better process and a much cleaner buyer journey than somebody that is completely siloed.
And I mean, and that makes sense, right? I mean, it just makes sense for fluidity and quickness, agility to make quick decisions and to align goals, my opinion. Yeah. So
It's a simple concept, but it's difficult in practice because you have all your sales team, you have all of your inputs to marketing, you have a design that was already put together, and so
right. So I want to transition into talking about buyer's journey, and I'd love for you to focus on B2B side. I know you referenced some strategies within B2C, but let's talk about B2B, which tends to be my audience. Buyer's journey's evolved a lot, and especially I would say the last 5 years, but even more so in the last 2 years since COVID and a global pandemic. What I don't even know where to start, honestly, with buyer's journey and asking a question at this point, because we came out of the ideal customer profiles and we went from geography into some of the psychographic data, and it was all about ideal customer profile, get your personas down and talk to them. And I feel like the buyer's journey's just gotten so much more complicated. Do you want to address that and define what you mean by buyer's journey, and then talk about how you coach or consult your companies to look at it and tackle it?
Yeah. When I say buyer journey, I mean the series of steps, actions, and content that a buyer learns about their problem and your solution. So, think of it from the inquiry stage of a sales process to the renewal stage of a sales process. Somebody has to go from, I have never heard about what you do, and I don't think I have a problem, to I acknowledge the problem, I have evaluated solutions, I have narrowed down those solutions, I have learned more about my role in that process, and now I am picking a solution, implementing the solution, and iterating upon that approach. And as you can imagine, and I'm sure as your audience knows from their work, that is countless amounts of steps, content that can help educate them, free trials in some examples, conversations with salespeople, consultants, product managers, and then eventually getting to the implementation, ripping something out, replacing it, improving something that exists, and moving towards an outcome that was defined all the way back in the inquiry stage. Yeah. I think that's the best way to put it. And the way that I coach people on it is, first things first, talk to your clients. They went on a buyer journey. Find out from them what parts were delightful, what parts were annoying, why did they pull the trigger? What did they learn during this process that made them decide, I cannot live without this product. I need this service in my life because it will help me improve, both my job performance and the company's performance as a whole. After that, talk to the people who are implementing the buyer journey, your sales reps, your content team, your marketing team, whoever runs your ads. Make sure that they understand where in the buyer journey they are making the most impact and how they can improve that impact over time. And then after that, put it all down for everyone to see. You can't build a house without a blueprint. IKEA sends you furniture. They don't just send you the parts and tell you good luck. They show you what it should look like and a step-by-step guide to get there. And so once you have that, it becomes a lot easier to, for example, make those cross-functional conversations happen, because sales, marketing, and success has all agreed that this is the way the journey should go. And so now we can talk about, how do you personally in your department improve upon that journey and the results from it?
Wow, that's really great. That's really good insights. And it makes me think of this question. I've seen people talk about it. I've seen a lot of content about it. I've even had conversations with people that said, basically, everything think you know about the buyer journey, throw it out because it's wrong. Well, how do you address that?
I wouldn't go that extreme. I would say more, your buyer journey is broken, and there are elements of your broken journey that you can use to build a better one. We're not blowing up everything that you have in place, but you might need a whole new wing for the building. You might need to redo the pipes underneath the building, which will be an incredibly invasive process and leave everybody involved changed forever. But, we're not just neutralizing and getting rid of everything that currently exists, because, without that, how did you raise this much money? How did you get to this level of revenue without at least some level of coherence in your buyer journey?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of people out there that speak in hyperbole to get attention, and they probably don't really mean throw it all out. But I do see some of it out there, and I'm like, you gotta start from somewhere, and not everything is bad. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. So yeah.
Exactly. And it's a lot easier to manage change when you're changing something that exists, and rather than just saying like, everything here sucks and we're replacing it all tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I would imagine there's a lot of resistance that comes with that internally, right? We've done, this is the way we've always done things. What are some of the obstacles? I want to talk about two things here. First is, what are some of the obstacles that teams have to change? And then what are you finding right now is the big motivation or the catalyst for change? But let's start with the obstacles.
Yeah, I mean, the obstacles, like you said, everybody is, doing something a certain way, and, they might be content with that way. It's the same way when you try to sell a solution that is maybe, that next step in the industry. Everyone is stuck on the status quo and they're not ready to see something new. People are also very guarded with their activity. They don't want to lose the things that they're doing every day because they don't see how they fit into the organization without those activities. If you tell a marketing person revenue operations is now going to handle 20% of what you're doing today, they think that they lost 20% of their job rather than gaining 20% of their time back to refocus on what's really important. So I think those are the main obstacles. People are stuck on the status quo and they don't want to lose their jobs, which I think makes a lot of sense. I would be afraid too. That's definitely something that is valid there. And then I think the catalyst for change, I mean, I hate to repeat myself, but it is that shared outcome. It is the improved version of what we're doing and the impact that it has individually, because everybody's life gets better when more revenue comes in from what we're doing. Sales is hitting quota, marketing is hitting their goals, client success has a ton of clients to work with and is able to help upsell them in some cases. So it is a rising tide lifts all boats mentality that I think helps that catalyst for change. And then I think on the lower levels, on the tactical levels, a lot of these folks have never been listened to. I see it a lot where, a salesperson doesn't want to change until you shadow them for a whole day and you give them things that actually make their job easier and don't cause any pain. Because there may be some pain coming in the future from the changes that we planned. But I think being able to connect with somebody, at a one-on-one level and say, yes, this is scary. Things are going to change, but I'm also giving you value. I'm helping you get to that next level of your performance. I'm giving you time back in your day. I'm automating a task that you hate and you think is annoying, and kind of helping. The best way to put it is you're giving them ownership of the process. And once they have that ownership, they're going to be a lot more likely to, one, stick to the process and adopt it, and two, improve upon that process and iterate on it because they feel like their opinions are being heard and their input is actually changing things.
Yeah, it seems to me across all departments right now that this concept of helping your team take ownership and input and share from their experiences, it seemed for me that it was only up at the higher levels. Like companies gave it lip service at lower levels, but it really didn't truly happen there. And it seems to me now that that's there's a big shift in our overall culture about authenticity, and you've got the Great Resignation going on and all this stuff. There's a lot more power at the lower levels, so to speak, or the entry levels, that I think there is a lot more conversation there about, what do you think? How is it working? What are your suggestions? How could we make this better? And when we empower those, when we empower anybody to start redefining what their role looks like and the activities look like, I think that raises the value of it. Does that sound pretty accurate to you?
Yeah, exactly. And I think internally, your buyer journey that you're building is a software platform and a software product. And your end users are those lower level, quote unquote, they're not lower really, but those tactical level workers.
Right.
And, if we take the product analogy, to its logical conclusion, when you build an actual product and take it to market, and your users are not using it in the way that you want, you're not just yelling at them and you're not telling them to change their behavior. You're updating your product with their feedback to make their experience better. And so that's what I think is finally happening. We are updating our buyer journeys with the feedback of our tactical employees to make everybody's experience better.
So we're finally listening to the old adage that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we should listen more and talk less.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's move into a bit of the tech stack and then some of the processes. And I
Yep.
want to come at it from a very specific way for a purpose. My belief is, and what I've seen, especially with the pandemic, is that email and cold calling were already on a rise. Email especially was on a rise. Cold
Yep.
calling was still was flattening out, I believe. But with the pandemic and everybody was working from home, there was just like every company in every country of the world had 2 things they needed to do. And it was send more emails and make more phone calls. What's happening with the efficacy of that, and how is that influencing the way that you're consulting companies with their tech stacks? Because I know you've mentioned SalesLoft, Outreach, and some others
Yeah.
that are really email driver engine tools, which are great tools. But
Yeah.
how is all of that with the change of the buyer, the change of culture, work from home? How is all that influencing companies making decisions on tools?
Yeah, yeah, and I think even regardless of the pandemic, the law of diminishing returns says that the more emails and the more cold calls you send, the less efficient that those channels will be. And so I think the pandemic definitely made this process happen a lot faster.
Mhm.
But this was always a problem. This was always
Mhm.
something that we were going to have to figure out one way or another. It's not as simple as knocking on doors, calling a million offices and hoping for the best. And what we're seeing now is the rise of product-led growth, right? Giving people access to a pared down version of your product and delivering them a unique sales experience based on how they interact with your product. So,
Mhm.
if somebody does trial number 1, you're just putting them on one campaign. If somebody is, paying for the light version of your product, they're on a different buyer journey or campaign. And so I think, PLG is on the software side of things, one way to get there. I think a lot about community as well,
Mhm.
finding places where your buyers are already showing up to talk about the problems that you solve and just showing up. It's the digital version of a conference.
Mhm.
Everybody is kind of in the town square, raising their hand and talking about things that you can help them with. So you better go to that town square, wear a big
Yeah.
shirt that says exactly what you do, and help them through it. And then we're also, I think, seeing a mindset shift where people are more willing to offer value without asking. You think about Gary Vaynerchuk, jab, jab, right hook. You think about even over the last few years, the fall of gated content. More
Yeah.
and more, the content that's available on a website is free for you to peruse and
Mhm.
download at your own discretion, because that's an example of I am an expert in my industry. Whatever problem I solve, I can solve it 100,000 different ways. So here's all the information you need to at least think about this problem. And then
Mhm.
when you're ready to solve it, come to me. I can help you, build that project plan, for example. And that's, not even to mention all of the ridiculously like invasive tools that are out there where you can track someone's IP and where they visited a website. You can get an alert when an internal project is started based on, how they're posting on social. Like the way that we connect with people has advanced a lot in a short period of time to make up that gap in cold calling, cold emailing, and knocking on doors.
Got it. No, that's very insightful, I think, for people to think about. I think there's a lot of people I've talked to, and then things that I read is what else are we going to do?
Yeah.
We got our emails, we got our cold calls, and they may not be working as well. And I know there's some leaders that don't even aren't willing to say that out loud,
Yeah.
but kind of secretly behind closed doors, they've got that oh crap moment. Like this is on a downward trend. What else are we going to do? And they're looking for some of those answers. What is
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Were you gonna say
I was,
something more on that?
yeah, I'll add one more thing, and
Please
because
do.
from my perspective, at Central Metric, we do not have a direct sales function. We are not cold calling. We are not cold emailing anybody at the moment. I think in the future we will, but it came down to a resource constraint because we were a small consulting organization when we started. And so, how did we grow? It was a three-headed beast of content, community, and partnerships. And the common thread at all three is that we're creating and showing up in places that our buyers are already going to.
I'm writing notes down. I'm getting a lot out of this, Sebastian.
Nice.
I
I'll send you
won't
an
write.
invoice after
Yeah,
this.
yeah, please do. I know. I just, before we started recording, I was on a call with somebody who's a client that's looking to expand. And at the end of it, she said, I didn't plan on this being a free coaching call. I'm like, well, it happens. It's all
The
good.
life of
So
a consultant. Yeah.
that's right. That's right. What the last thing I would love to hear your take on is some of the variety of digital tools that are out there, the digital networks. And
Yeah.
I want to let you and everybody listening know that I am intentionally staying away from the word social, because I think social media all of a sudden becomes, I think it goes into category people think of social media marketing versus individual influence. I think they start thinking about ads, they think about content, they think about even on the B2C influencer side, and they just kind of put it in a category of big no. That's not, I like to use the word digital because it could be everything from LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, WhatsApp, Reddit.
TikTok.
There's lots of TikTok. There's a lot of digital tools out there that are not social media.
Yeah.
Right. How are you addressing that with customers that, and I'm assuming that most likely they come to you and go, what about social selling? And another term I hate because it's just been abused. But how do you coach people, talk to people, or approach that whole digital networking side?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think there is no one right answer to that. It changes with what you're selling and who you're selling to. A digital approach on LinkedIn might work really well with marketers. But if you're selling to Main Street business owners that, maybe they have a lawn care company or they're a barber shop, you're not going to find them on LinkedIn. So, that piece of a digital strategy will not serve you. Trucking is another one. How do we reach truckers and people in logistics? The good news is that there is always a digital way to do so. And I would argue, and we could kind of take this offline, that email is a digital tool, right?
I fully agree. I think digital is in a weird hybrid world now because of the way it's been abused. Traditionally, categorically, it is a digital tool, but I think the abuse of it, the overuse of it, has kind of put it in this weird category now that it is digital, but the efficacy has been decreased because of massive abuse. And, it's just easy. Oh, let's just go send out 1,000 emails. Well, you got 1,000 people out there that now have to deal with the piece of unsolicited, unwanted. And that's why spam filters have gotten more sophisticated. And I believe digital marketers have just kind of shot themselves in the foot there, but we'll have that conversation another time. But I do agree with you. It technically is digital, but it's on its own shelf at the moment for me.
Got it. Yeah. So then I think the answer is the kind of the same as the previous. Is figure out digitally where your people are going. And if there is no place, create that place. Become the owner of that town square where all of the truckers are coming to talk about, their shitty bosses or the way they got a flat tire on that last, road trip. And then that is where, that is worth more than 1 billion emails to 1 billion truckers.
Right. Yeah. I'm starting to experiment more. I've been a reader of Reddit, but I have not been a strategic user of it. And I'm just at the beginning stages of that. Do you have any experience with some of those, I'll call them more fringe when it comes to like digital marketing type of tools? Any of those that
Yeah,
stand out to you?
sort of. I mean, I think there's some interesting things you can do, specifically on Reddit, to kind of, for lack of a better word, manufacture engagement around a certain topic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, Slack is the best place to start. I think I'm in 13 to 15 different Slack communities, all, popping up on the side of my screen. But it's endless. You could create
Mm-hmm.
your own forum tomorrow for your buyers, and in a year, it could be the most trafficked forum on the web. So we're in that space where there aren't as many roads. We're still
Mm-hmm.
kind of chopping down the trees and trying to see through the brush rather than, this is the path to take for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. Again, every time you talk, I like sparks things with me that I need to write down and go further, investigate and review and all that.
That's good.
Well, yeah, this has been excellent. I look forward to continuing the conversation with you. Sebastian, thank you so much for being with me today on the Digital Influence Show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I want you to take the time to let everybody know about where they could find you and where they can find you, Central Metrics and some of the share with them, like what are some of the best types of customers you deal with? If someone's out there going, this makes sense, I need help, how would they find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best place to find me. Send me a DM, comment directly on me, tag me in a post to call me out. I am way too active on LinkedIn. So that's the best way to reach me. Consider me the head of sales at Central Metric too. So if you want to learn how we do what we do, examples of other clients, hit me up and I'll point you in the right direction. And I think, if to self-identify as somebody that we'd want to talk to or work with, at the smallest level, if you are thinking about putting in a CRM, I want to talk to you. If you just bought a CRM and you have no idea what comes next, I want to talk to you. On the marketing side of things, if you're having trouble with attribution, how do we track all of these ads, all of these touch points, all of this activity, and make sure that leadership knows that we're doing our job well? I want to talk to you. If you're a sales leader that is good with people and strategy, but bad with process and tech, again, I want to talk to you. So really, we can run the whole gamut, enterprise to small business. I love talking about this stuff. I love looking at a well-run buyer journey and revenue operations machine. And, I'm lucky and blessed enough to have had hundreds of conversations with people doing it all in different and unique ways. And that is really the strength of Central Metric, is just the amount of repetitions of a great buyer journey that we have seen or helped build.
Excellent. Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, Sebastian. You're a wealth of information there on that buyer journey and tech stack and thinking through that process of RevOps. So I really appreciate you being here today. And hey, everybody else, thank you for joining the Digital Influence Show again. And I think this has been one of our best conversations in a while, Sebastian. I really do think that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And for everyone else, you have questions, you have comments, you have topics that you want to share, throw them in the comments wherever you're watching this, on YouTube, on our Twitter feed, on LinkedIn, and of course on our podcast as well. So thank you everybody so much. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time on the Digital Influence Show. Take care.